alcohol and testosterone. How does it affect it, and is this going to have an impact on your training? Now, the first question to address is, should we be worrying about our testosterone levels and also how alcohol is affecting it? Now, remember from the previous FAQ video about this, testosterone is not necessarily the end goal. We're not trying to just increase testosterone for the sake of it. What testosterone does is it gives us a marker, it gives us an idea as to whether we are doing things right or doing things wrong. Now, you've probably heard the story about the psychologist at a party that was talking to these two guys and said, I'm a psychologist, I can tell you loads about your life from one thing. So tell me, for example, it says to the first guy, do you have a goldfish at home? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, right, so as a result, I can tell that you've got a stable home, you've got pets, so you probably have other pets, you maybe have a dog. If you have a dog, you're probably happily married, and so you probably, because you're young as well, you probably have an active sex life, and so I imagine you don't masturbate. And he's like, wow, how you could tell all that from goldfish? And he's like, yeah, sure. And turns to the other guy and says, what about you? Do you have a goldfish? And the guy's like, no. And he's like, you wanker. So that's it. Testosterone gives us this marker of a bunch of other things being in place, just like the goldfish and masturbating. So if it's within the physiological range, then we know that we're ticking all of the main boxes with our diet and our training. And within that physiological range, so going from the low end to the high end, there is some association of body composition. So if you've got higher testosterone, you're more likely to have more muscle mass and less fat. So the hormone is important for muscle gain and fat loss. And although we shouldn't be chasing it, we also shouldn't be doing things to smash it. So if we're doing things to actively reduce our testosterone, such as poor sleep, frequent drinking, or high stress situations, and those are the main ones, let's assume that you're training all the time anyway. Obviously overtraining and under-recovering and under-eating and all those things will also affect it, or being excessively lean. But let's say habit-wise, those three things are avoidable. Poor sleep, frequent drinking, and high stress. So if we're doing those things, then we are stacking the odds against ourselves with regard to muscle gain and fat loss, because those are things that are in our control and they're going to negatively affect testosterone. So I'm going to cover a few other things there at the end as well. But for now, let's discuss how alcohol affects it. So what alcohol does, alcohol is like a toxin and it provides a liver load. That is, it gives your liver something to do when your liver already has a job to do. So it says, right, stop all the jobs that I'm doing right now. I'm going to have to deal with this alcohol first because that's gone to the priority. What that means is that the other jobs that the liver does, critically for our purposes, our estrogen metabolism and growth hormone synthesis, have to take the back seat. So that means that while the alcohol is being metabolized, the liver has to hold off on metabolizing estrogen and keeping your estrogen levels down within a normal range and making growth hormone. That is not a good sign for testosterone or for muscle gain. Now, is this a major effect, or is this a major problem if you're only drinking alcohol for a short period and once it's metabolized you're done? Well, we'll see. So what are the effects on humans? This is the effect on growth hormone. And interestingly, this is a guy who managed to do his own hormone tests before and after, and he does a lot of self-experimentation, just found him on YouTube. And he found that he dropped 70% of his growth hormone after 5 days of living a kind of bad lifestyle and drinking heavily during that time. That number is actually supported in the data as well. There is around a 70% reduction in growth hormone, and this is one of the other anabolic hormones. So this is kind of what happens when you drink for 3 or 4 days and then you've got this lasting effect for another 3 or 4 days of reduced growth hormone. That's going to affect your ability to recover from your workouts and your ability to gain muscle in that time. So that's growth hormone. What about testosterone? Well, alcohol, unfortunately, not only provides this liver load and increases your estrogen for that time, but it has a direct effect on your testicles and reduces their output. And as Johnny mentions in the article, that can range between, say, 6 and 8% or so. And obviously, over the long term, that is something that you want to try and avoid if you can. But what's the real life effect on training, and is there any way we can mitigate this, and is it too much of a problem? So really it's dose dependent. Obviously, like anything else, if you're going to take a small amount of a toxin relative to a large amount, that's going to have different effects on your body and the downstream effects. Now, there is a suggestion that it's cumulative. So if you are drinking little and often, that's probably worse for your general testosterone output than if you were to have a large amount in one go. I'm not saying go out and binge drink, but for when comparing one or the other, you're probably better off having longer periods with no alcohol so that you can restore your balance and get things working. This picture on the bottom is the end stage. So this is what happens when the liver is so overloaded and it becomes damaged and cirrhosed, and estrogen can't be metabolized. So you end up with excess circulating estrogen in the blood, and this is what's given this man the gynecomastia, or the boobs. Notice as well that he's totally hairless. That comes from the reduction in testosterone as well, that there's no more androgens to support the hair growth in the body, and so that happens. And then this distended abdomen is fluid, but that's more from being able to metabolize albumin, and it's causing changes in the pressure in his bodily fluids, but not as relevant for us. So the clear answer is alcohol does negatively affect your growth hormone and testosterone. We're not going to be under any impression that it's good for it, but if you're going to do it, then make sure you've at least got the other big rocks in place to maintain your health and your hormone levels. So good sleep, reduced stress, frequent training, and so on. And if you're going to drink, you've got to consider the doses and how often you are drinking as well. And remember that it's cumulative. If you're wondering for more tips on how to optimize your testosterone, this is something that we cover in one of the FAQ videos in the Mastery Programs members area for VIP guys. So you can check that out if you're a member, and if not, you can sign up for a standalone course, £19.97 a month, and you'll get all access to all of this stuff along with another 100 FAQs, full hour-long modules on several topics including alcohol, managing your diet around a social life, and a lot more as well. Okay.